Welcome back to another episode of the Minds with Hakeem podcast. I got a very special reoccurring guest, Kayla, Bell-Consolver. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. I remember the first time we met, I was so nervous to pronounce your name.
I was thinking like, okay.
Oh, yeah, no, I got it. I'm like, hey, we're friends now. I really feel like we're friends after that. So that's what podcasts do, it bring friends. I'm so excited to have you on. We're going to talk a little bit about racial trauma. I'm going to learn about it with you guys in real time. So this is going to be fun and eventful for me. So I hope you guys enjoy that. But it is Mental Health Awareness Month, right?
It is, isn't it?
So what better chance to have a therapist on? You are a therapist, right? Not a counselor. Okay.
Y'all think it's the same thing. Like,
it's
my
not?
credentials is a licensed mental health counselor, but most folks would see that as their mental health therapist.
Okay. I do see it as the exact same thing.
Yes.
That's why I tried to clarify and get it right. But thank you so much for coming back on the Minds with Hakeem. I really enjoyed our first episode. I actually reran it back just because getting ready for I knew you was coming back on. You've been busy. You've been doing a lot. It was January of 2021. And
crazy.
Here we are today in what is May of 2023.
Wow, yeah.
This is beautiful. So I just want to open it up for an update. So can you kind of fill us in of what you've been up to?
Listen, when you sent that and then we said we're going to talk about racial trauma, I said, wow, like January 2021, I said, what
that
a
was
time.
a lot of
What
trauma.
A time. But no, a lot. I've changed jobs. So now I'm the director of the Drake University Counseling
Love
Center.
that.
When we last worked, I was a therapist. I wasn't even fully licensed yet. So now I'm fully independently licensed.
Hold up. I figured out my hand claps.
Yeah, that's hard work. It takes like 2 years to get that.
For sure.
I also started my own LLC now. That's big. That's new.
That's good hand claps right there. That's
excited. Yes.
Kind of give us a spill about your LLC. What you're going to be getting into, obviously counseling work, but.
Absolutely. Actually, so my LLC is focused specifically on like training, presentations, and speaking engagements about mental health from like an inclusive social justice lens.
This is good.
So I've done a lot of public speaking. I've done some work with like John Deere now. I've done it with some other companies. Yep. I do it like some conferences. I've been speaking a lot more at those. And so I've been really putting myself out there. That has been exciting.
I love that.
And I've really actually been building myself up. Like when you said 2021, I was like, I feel like I'm a very different person.
Yeah. You should be.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been transformed.
Very transformed. I've done a lot of my own healing. I've been like really pouring into myself so I can pour into the community. And when I think back to 2021, I felt like I wasn't really as involved as I could. That's why you're seeing me over. There's a lot of life happening. I was like, I don't really want to be around people as much. And so since I started doing a lot of healing, probably the fall of 2021 into like now, a lot more last fall, I've really been like, how do I get more connected?
Yeah.
How do I feel like I belong a little bit more in this space and not just be on the side? And I just wanted to share like my heart, share a lot of my knowledge. That's why I was like, I would love to get on this podcast again.
We love that.
It feels good to exist.
Well, I'm honored that you wanted to be back on and we needed you back on. Like you said, it's been a break. And me personally, I love interviewing counselors and therapists because I feel like I get a free session. But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about Drake, like kind of what you're doing now. I want to breeze past it. I know y'all doing big things. You're in the new building. So kind of like touch bases on like what's going on over there, where you guys are helping and filling in.
Absolutely. So college mental health is a big thing right now.
Absolutely.
Across the country. I mean, you're getting a lot of folks post-pandemic, right, that had expedited mental health concerns and then not a lot of resources. So college counseling centers across the board, there's never enough people. Even in our center, like the national average recommends like one counselor per 1,000 students.
Whoa.
And my brain is always like, well, what happens if every student decides I need it at that one point in time? I was like, we will combust.
Yeah.
So when I came into this role, it's been like, how do we do more comprehensive? Like not run it like a private practice. So I got a team of people on that also see equity as important. Also, I've been really focused on like inclusivity. Like, why are there certain groups of populations that don't feel comfortable coming to the counseling center? We got to interrupt that. So I've done a lot of stuff related to that. We won a grant actually through the APA. It was the More Community Equity in Community Mental Health grant. Nice. So that was fantastic. And that helped us to do a lot of different programming specific to students of color. And like in the first year, we saw a 5% increase in them using our services. And we know like Black and brown people aren't struggling more, right? It's just they're not accessing services because of often what they experience.
Finances and also trauma in the home that we don't talk about these. So it's a lot to overcome. I mean, it's a good thing that you got to increase, and it's also like, okay, people need help, so it's not that great, but it's good that they're getting help. So I like that though. Like that sounds like something very fulfilling. You light up when you talk about that. You light up.
I get the best of every world. Like I get to do therapy. I also get to do public speaking. I also get to do programming because it's like a wraparound of like every person should get mental health services, even if they never step in the door of a therapist.
One thing I want to talk about, because you mentioned you brought on a group of people. I've been trying to just play with this idea and like really like live it. You talked about bringing on people on. I want to talk about this term. It's called like trusting teams. How do you feel about your team that you have around you at Drake right now? What kind of culture you guys are setting and kind of laying out? Are you guys working that close with each other at the moment?
Yeah, we're a pretty solid team.
That's good.
And it's like, this is how I just like get to know people in the interview process, is I see everything as like a puzzle piece. So I don't want a group of people that are all the same.
No.
I'm like, you bring this unique perspective, you bring that. And like, when you first come together, it's like, okay, how do we make this work?
Yeah.
So I'm really tired because like I have to put in a lot of work for that. Like we need to have communication. We need to figure these pieces out. And I want to understand your story, and I want everyone else to be able to communicate like where you feel comfortable. And so I feel, which they do a really good job for me, because my own personal issues, I struggle with like, when I have Leo, okay, let somebody else take it, because I'm like, I feel like I got to do everything.
Yeah.
Right? And in this role, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm charged. Like that. I take that very seriously, being the director. And a Black woman as a director, like that means a lot. So it's been learning to be like, I don't have to do it all. I got folks, right?
Delegation.
And I haven't worked in a lot of spaces like that where I do feel like I can just release it. So they've done a really good job reassuring me like, oh, I'm going to take this on. Or I got this, and things such as that in that space.
That's so good, because if you don't delegate, you get wore out. And if you delegate and micromanage, your team get wore out.
Exactly.
So trusting team is everything,
It's
man.
a process.
It is. And it comes with trust. I think like that's the biggest thing about a team. It's like everybody has different teams they're working on. Do you trust that person to do their job well? Can you take the hands off and let them report? It's hard. So I'm happy to hear that you got a solid team, because that's goals. I got a solid team too.
Right. I tell them like, I'm not gonna hire anybody that like I feel like I already have to do that. So it's like in the interview, I'm listening.
I love that.
Where you want to grow, I want to help that, but also like where do you already feel like you've achieved?
Yeah, and hiring smarter. Like this stuff that we're doing and able to talk on, I don't know it. Yeah. That's why I got Saul, my man, to hold it down, and he can teach me at 100%, but I don't ever want to be smarter than him at this, because I'm playing my role well. So it's all about playing your roles,
knowing your role too.
Yeah,
right?
And he allows me to be the star player. Yeah. But he gets not a lot of the credit. I praise him, but he's mean. I'm glad you had a chance to just talk about your team, because that's important, especially in the leadership role.
Absolutely.
So, all right, we want to talk about this topic, racial trauma. That's the correct term.
Yeah.
All right, so educate me in real time on this topic, because I'm sure you've been doing a lot of speeches on it and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So we know what trauma is, right?
Absolutely.
It started with that as the idea, you experience like a perceived threat or actual threat to your sense of safety, emotional injuries that have long lasting impacts, for you, for your psyche, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about others.
Yep.
Racial trauma is no different. The only difference is that the stressor that has occurred is race related. And what's actually discouraging is that within our community, mental health community, we haven't called it that, right? Yep. And even within our own communities, it's like, oh, that's just the thing that happened, right? But it impacts our sense of safety, right? If I get pulled over, I'm panicking, I'm nervous, am I going to be alive? Like that's not a really natural response, right? A traumatic response, because these systems and things that have happened. Yep. So when we think about racial trauma, it's the incidents that have created so many injuries, right? That have created a sense of threat to one's safety and self related on the color of their skin.
Yep. That's pretty self-explanatory. I'm glad you kind of broke that down for me. But I think it's funny about that topic because, being in Iowa, we're around a ton of white people. I mean, both of our wives are white. I get a pool of people, and I'm glad people feel open to talk about what they believe and what they think around me. That means I'm very approachable. But I get a pool of people who understand that, and also get a pool of people who think it doesn't exist. Because my wife think I always got to be on to educate people in this. How do you have those conversations with those people who you got to educate, who's completely, I would say in the nicest way possible, ignorant to what really goes on when it comes to racial trauma in people of color and minorities across the world, not just in America.
Right. I think that's a tough question, right? Because for me, when I think I exist in that all the time, and honestly, I exist in it a lot because I'm very friendly to folks, and I've had people other me and say like, "You're not like those other Black people," or "You just
that's
seem a
very
lot more
hurtful.
kind."
It's very hurtful,
and they think it's kind, right? So for me, I see, if you asked me this 2 years ago, I would give you an entirely different answer. So I'm gonna tell you how I answered it maybe 2 years ago, and then I'm gonna tell you from like a healed place how I answered it.
Okay.
So 2 years ago, I'd be like, you educate everybody. That's probably the Christian in me. You know, you just wrap somebody up, you love on them. If they need the education, you are the person that is there. You have the knowledge, pour into them. And I used to think, even going to Drake, I was like, if I'm the only Black person these folks meet, fantastic. Because I'm gonna be able to help, you know, and all that. Right? We hear how that can be problematic, right? Because I'm absorbing this pain that they're sending me, even if it's well intentioned. You can ask me any kind of question that you would like. I'm expected to take it. I'm expected to feel that, and I'm expected to make your life better or easier moving forward while you do your education. The more I started understanding racial trauma, how that's linked to ancestral trauma, understanding what my ancestors, slaves, had to go through, right, to take on the bearing and the pain that you have to make your life better, I started recognizing, wow, we didn't really get a lot of permission to stand up for ourselves.
Nope.
Getting a lot of permission to say, I don't like that, or maybe I don't feel like doing that service, that free service, right, from you. So I, through healing, because I experienced a lot of institutional abuse, is what my therapist called it, where I was put in that role, maybe one-to-one that felt good, but systemically that does not feel good. And that feels like tokenizing. And when I started naming that, before I started helping someone, I had to check in with my body. Am I even okay? We go straight into like logic. Let me talk to someone. Our heart is beating fast. I'm uncomfortable.
Super.
I'm maybe like fidgety. So those things, it's like before I educate someone, I have to check in to see, am I even in the space right now to have this conversation? And to say, I have permission to be in the space and capacity that I need to engage in a conversation that may be harmful. Even if it's not in that moment, there's the potential that I'm going to endure an emotional injury. And I love this person. Maybe I care about them, or maybe it's my job. I'm expected to. I still have the right to be okay doing that kind of work.
For sure.
So before I go into that, I have to check on myself. If I don't have the capacity, right, I don't just say, no, I'm not going to do it. There might be sometimes I don't, right? But I really check in, what do I need to be okay with doing this? I started telling some folk, I just don't have the capacity to do any of that free labor. Right? So when I started using the words free labor, I was like, oh, let me check in. Really what sent this over for me was the murder of Breonna Taylor and what happened with the settlement. And I realized, especially as a Black woman, I said, wow, this is the price this is what we're seeing as the price. Your pain is worth this $1. Outside of that, we don't validate it. We don't care. And I started realizing, how am I engaging in that same messaging in my daily life? My body doesn't matter. My knowledge does. What I can provide to you does. But me as a human being, I don't. So I had to start enhancing my own humanness and humanity in these spaces. So I'll say, maybe I don't have time until next week. I don't have to be ready right now to do all that work. I can say there's resources available. If I have the capacity, I'm very open with the fact of like how this might impact me. I can be transparent to know, for some people, doing that work is just a conversation, it's knowledge. For me, it's a whole experience. So if I'm gonna engage with somebody, I gotta be human, and you know that you're speaking to a human. So if they say stuff, it's okay for me to say like how I feel, talk about my perspective. But truthfully, in the beginning, I'll always ask like, what's your goal or intention with this?
What you trying to do with this information?
Right. Yes. And like, what is your understanding? I want to know where you're at, because if I'm going to be telling you all this knowledge and you maybe haven't even read a book or had a conversation, I'm going to be far beyond. Not saying someone doesn't have it, but you're expelling energy and intelligence and knowledge that they haven't had the chance yet. And that can be overwhelming.
For sure.
And they can't swallow that too.
And unfortunately, most of the time, we are the first person to have those conversations with people who just don't know. And some people, I think, I love the fact that you said, what's your intention? Because, I mean, some people are allies and want to be allies. And some people just like already have their thought process already out. And they just want to hear your perspective to see which box they can put you in. To me, that one is very frustrating. It's like, I was talking to a group of men last night, and I was actually talking about our church, Cottage Grove, how it's considered in the community woke church to some people. But I told the group of men, I was like, they won't say it to me though. They'll tell my white buddies that, or my white friends in the church, like, "Oh, did you go to that woke church?" And they won't say it to me. And one of my friends looked at me, white guy, who was really confused. He was like, "What you mean they won't say it to you?" He don't understand the association that word woke come with. So it's like that's another chance for me. Like, I gotta explain this to him, and that's my friend, and we truly like love each other in Christ first, and then as brothers. So I don't mind explaining it to him because I know he's genuinely confused by what I mean by that. But it is tiresome. It is tiresome because like you always got to be on, and I love the way you just check in with yourself first. That's good. That's good. Absolutely. That's definitely something I can take.
And I want to build on that too. When you said like I always got to be on. That's when I'm like doing therapy, those are the things I'm listening for, right? Because when you think of trauma, there's like different responses. We have like our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Yeah. Our fight is like, I got to attack. I got to be ready to protect myself. Yeah. Flight is like, I got to run away, get out of here. Freeze is like, I'm panicked. I have no idea what to do. Fawning is, I have to do whatever I can to appease this person to make sure they're okay. So when I hear things like, I always got to be on, that sounds like hypervigilance to me. Yeah. And that sounds like, I can't say how I feel. I can't show up. I have to code switch or else. Yeah. Right. That lets me know there's a threat Survival. To safety, psychological safety. Right. Those are the reasons why I say these microaggressions, macroaggressions, these mess ups. These are like activating wounds, and these aren't present. They're long-term ancestral wounds, right? Because who would say it's okay to feel like I always got to be on? Yeah. Just in case someone says something. What does that mean? What is our bodies experiencing? Exactly. And that's truly racial trauma because it's not like I just got to keep going through, but that's what we've been taught. Because how else were we able to survive? You know, Jim Crow, slavery, you know, transatlantic slave trade, neo Jim Crow, right? Except that resilience of like, we just got to go through. But we never get permission to say, I can actually heal from this. Yeah. What does that even look like and feel like? What are some ways that we can actually like heal from this, look like and feel like when we're constantly in it? Absolutely. Yeah. So the first thing is when we think about like systematic oppression, right? All these bigger issues that are happening, I always want to acknowledge that we can't just think ourselves through because it's not a thinking issue. It's not you thinking about the world inappropriately or inaccurately. So going to like your sense of safety, right? How safe do you feel? What does that look like? What are the messages that you've told yourself about yourself? And I think that is the most uncomfortable. And I don't know if you've ever felt like that as a dark-skinned person. Like I had to sit with the fact that why do I feel this way? Like why do I feel less attractive? Because my skin is darker. And then going, where did I learn that? How did I learn that? Because until we understand and really like sit with where these messages are coming from and how they show up, even that message of like, I have to educate him. There's a difference between I have to and I want to. Or like I'm okay with, right? But that have to, it comes from a real place of like, what would happen if I didn't? That fear-based, right? And so really understanding and what does your body feel? I think what we do a lot of is try to escape that feeling because it's so overwhelming. Because if we actually sit with how that makes us feel, sometimes it will impact how we respond or how we feel about that relationship. But allowing ourselves, like there's a book called My Grandmother's Hands by Resma Menakem. I love his book and how he processes like racial trauma. He says like we got to anchor ourselves in that moment. When something happens, like how do I actually ground my body before I respond, right? Because that's where the healing relies. It's like I can release it from my body so I can respond from the best place. Other ways I love to do it is like empowering yourself. What is like self-compassion, but also empowering messages look like for you? Because if we look anywhere, we don't receive that often. Maybe we do now more than we did before. But like growing up, you don't see a lot of messages, maybe except it's in the community. But sometimes, let's be real, our community like internalizes the messages that we receive through racism. And so that's pouring into us. So we're kind of having this damage internally already when thinking about healing through relationships or racial trauma. But another piece is like, it's okay to heal in community. I say protesting is a form of like healing, right? It's the idea that you can't take my voice away. I have a voice, I do matter, and I'm going to express that. And that's okay for me to do that. Also surrounding yourself in communities where it is okay, right? So if that is a relationship you talked about, I got to educate. Oh, can we have a conversation about how that, like what's happening to me, right? I don't want to make you like smarter about this topic. I need you to see me as a person, and having spaces that validate that, right? Heals that, because we don't want to just say go into your community, right? In segregation, this is the only way. No, healing can happen in relationships with people that are safe. That's true. That's true. Because in like even in that situation I just broke down, I do feel like it was a genuine question from, what are you talking about? Like because like grew up in, let's say, white guy grew up in Adele for a chance.
it's not many black people out there. It's probably a Hispanic community, an Asian community, and maybe a black community out there. He don't know from a can of paint, but he may be an ally. So it's like, am I okay with sharing this with that person? It's a great way. I like the way you broke that down. That was really smooth.
Yeah, give yourself permission.
Yeah. That's
give
good.
yourself permission to engage in that space.
I'm in thought right now.
Okay. So. Sit in that thought.
trying to figure it out. So, what do you do to like? What are some practical ways we can sit in that thought? Do you practice meditation? Do you practice obviously prayer? What are some key ways that you can sit in it and kind of process that thought process, that trauma, whatever we label it as?
Yeah, absolutely. I say someone's going to sit in it, like rock in it too, breathe in it. You know what I mean? Like as you're processing, I love like rocking left and right. Like usually when I do presentations, you might even see me like as I'm talking,
boom,
like
boom,
just
boom.
naturally
That's that
dance.
flow.
Yeah, dance. Any way to release it from your body as well. If you're going to talk to somebody about it, even go like for a walk, if you're able to walk, or try to get in some space where you like are moving, right? You're expressing in a way that feels natural for you. Because the way we think about trauma is it doesn't live like in our logical brain, right? It's the idea that when we are prefrontal cortex, I'm not going to get all scientific and nerdy on y'all, but it's the idea it lives in the part of our brain that maybe can't process our words, right? It has a lot of different emotions that are held there. So when we think about healing, we have to go to the emotional place, right? To actually release that. So that's why if you're talking it out, sometimes you might vent and be talking like, I feel better, but it still feels there. Right? So finding ways to like express that. I love folks who do like painting, artwork, music, poetry, anything that allows your body to just feel within that space. Like working out for me, that's basketball. Where I started. Basketball. I started going to the gym like crazy, 2021, but that was my space to be like, I can listen to music and dance and just like listen to my body and just feel stronger.
I love that.
So finding ways to like engage your body, but also finding ways to soothe your body if you're activated. And I always say like, if you are in spaces, come up with your clapbacks. This is like my favorite thing to do. It's like, what are your racial trauma clapbacks? So if someone says something that's out of pocket, what do you want to say? Right? Sometimes we say, I can't think that. No. Give yourself permission to say what you want to say in your mind, right? You're trying to get nobody fired.
Don't.
Right? But think about what do you want to say? And then think, okay, how can I still get that message, right? Because sometimes we see our experiences as like angry and then hostile, aggressive. Again, those are messages that's been given to us specifically to like, we think about Black racial trauma, right? But anger comes from a very valid place. Anger is one of the emotions that show up when someone experiences injustice or you feel that there's been injustice or a threat to their safety. How do you still express that though? And give yourself permission to release that in a way that feels authentic for you and not only coming from that place.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I definitely took some from like I was over here thinking because I actually was talking to one of my good friends and he was checking in on me and I was just like, bro, I'm feeling angry right now, bro. I don't know why. I'm just angry. And I never really thought to like just like get active because like I've been missing, like that's why I screamed out basketball because like I've been missing that activity because I think during basketball game about other than basketball, believe it or not. So that's good. I had got a question for you upon like college students. How can we be like as people in the community supporting and listening to our college students right now? Because I know college is a weird place. It's almost like middle school. You just a little smarter. Like middle school is a weird place because you just a gopher. Everybody's gophers. But what headspace are college students in without obviously harming anyone? Can you share?
Yeah, I can tell you the highest reasons that across the board that college students seek out services is like anxiety and depression, low self-esteem, see a lot of perfectionism, low self-worth, because you're dealing with a population that's probably prided their identity on achievement or prided on like, this is what I need for my family. So a lot of like marginalized groups is like, you might be first gen or you might be in college and that represents something like I can't fail, right? Because me failing doesn't mean I'm a failure in my family, but me failing means like my other people who are coming after me or other people who have come before me, like I'm messing up the generation. You know? Like, you see that with other folks too, but I see it a lot there. and just not really at that space yet where you're able to really process.
Yeah.
Right? When you think about where we're at now, we can look back, like, oh, I've overcame that, or I have those, but you're still in that time of like, you're still navigating life and figuring that out. And with this certain population now, the pandemic interfered with a lot of like social, emotional development, because at the time of your life where you needed it the most to like build connections, you're quarantined. Like the folks in college right now are probably like the ones graduating, started college. Like that's a whole different part. Going back home. Right. So that interrupts development. And so when you think about how do we bridge the gap, how do we connect? I think it's going to take a longer time to like process through.
Absolutely.
And we think about it, it's more of like, we have to go to them. And that's something I've learned in my roles. Like they are like maxed out mentally and emotionally with like expanding themselves, often because they're already expanded enough.
All right. Real time. I'm going to try to get some help for you right now. Okay. See, this is why I say I get a free therapy session.
What I get
so I'm explaining. Notoriety. No, just all right. So here's the situation.
Yeah.
I have a family member. He really did not get to experience high school because he grew up in a place where we have hurricanes. Hurricane wiped out his first. He went his freshman year. Hurricane wiped out his sophomore year, and COVID knocked out his junior and senior year. So he did 3 years of high school at home.
Wow.
And now this person is a young adult, college age, and we talk about a lot of things. Like I'm heavily involved in this person's life. I get kickback from him because I'm just like, go have a conversation. Like, go do that. Like, he's starting to date now. And I'm like, why are you trying to find a partner online? Like, let's go have you see these real people right here? Can't talk to him. And he actually get frustrated at me when I try to put him in that space because I have those skills. He don't. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And because
I know I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. Well, let me preface this. When anyone listen, don't come for my license. This is not therapy.
Yeah.
We're going to have a conversation.
This is a conversation. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm not going to come from the perspective of what you're doing wrong. Yeah. Right. I don't like to do that because that can be shaming. Yeah. Right. What I will say is his experience, he spent more time not being face to face and having like relationships built that way than maybe online. So for him, he's like, this is all I know how to do. And let's imagine someone is cooking a meal and they only have those 2 ingredients. Yep. And then we take them to a space, they have so many other ingredients. It's overwhelming.
They're going to go to them too.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what this is. Right. And that's visually seeing emotions. There's no like, you physically can't see them, right? We can see somebody acting out these emotions, but the intensity and all the nervousness. So going to someone in person where you see their nonverbals. If I reach out to somebody online, right, I can't see their face. So if I put this out there, I can't see their disgust. I can't see their rejection. I can't even see their excitement. But that's probably more comforting because a lot of the things that impact social anxiety and connection are the nonverbal cues.
Yes.
We look at more nonverbal cues than we have the actual verbal cues.
Yeah, we as humans don't even realize it. We communicate a lot. Yeah. Nonverbal. Like I always tell this story about premarital counseling. Like our premarital counselor was digging into me and my wife's life. Like I'll use that term. And she was right. And I was wrong. And it's not about being right and wrong. I just felt convicted in the sense of the conversation. My arms like this. I ain't even notice it. And I'm just tight and I'm like this. And then she was like, all right, let's just say something nice to each other. Like, let's just give each other 2 compliments. And I immediately like started to read myself. I'm like, oh, she's paying attention to my body. Like she's getting her job. But the bulk of our communication is nonverbal. So that is good to know. And I appreciate that. That is helpful. Just understanding and explaining because I didn't go through what they went through. Right. Like I was able to experience a full high school, full college lifestyle, not during COVID, which was a weird space. Yeah. Very weird space.
And I add to it too. I mean, I don't know the nature of this person's experience, but I can only imagine going to school, having friends, being connected that way, that all of a sudden is taken away.
Gone.
And to think about trying to build connections and what I've seen in therapy, sometimes there might be parts of people that are like, I'm afraid to get really connected to people because I don't know if this is going to be taken away.
For sure.
Right. And sometimes that's not like in our conscious mind. That's like, I can connect the dots. Sometimes it's like in our, subconscious, like I am not aware this is really the fear that's happening. Yeah. So I imagine like that was traumatic. And I'm curious, like, what does that mean to relationships, or, you know, worrying, are the people I care about alive or not? And sometimes it's safer to maybe have a relationship that I'm not building that physical, that emotional connection at that intensity, maybe slowly working myself into that, because maybe that feels safer, right? There could be so many factors, but related to that.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'll close out with these 2 questions, and then we'll obviously follow up and see how we can stay connected to your work. My first one is, what do you think is driving all of this anxiety and fears in college students' lives specifically? And then also on top of that, what are some tangible things that they can do and we can do? Because I feel like my generation is going through those same anxieties too. So I'm not just focusing on them, but what are some things that they can do to kind of combat the drivers?
Yeah, absolutely. We think about anxiety, it's like the messages, right, that come with anxiety. That what are you saying about yourself to yourself? What do you think people feel about you? So I see a lot of the factors. One is perfectionism. And let's be real, perfectionism is rewarded in our society.
For sure.
The better you are, the more equipped you are to do different things, the longer your resume is, especially at that young age, the more you're deemed as accepting or acceptable in a college environment. So the threat to make a mistake is so high. The threat to potentially be found out as maybe I don't know as much, or maybe I like skated through high school and now I'm here, or the pressure to feel like you have to do everything correctly is so overwhelming. And you can only maintain that at so long. It works in high school, but then it's harder. So I see a lot of anxiety related to that. I also have to always go back to the socioeconomic, environment that we live in. So finances, right, can be anxiety inducing. A lot of college students don't come from those backgrounds. So predictability of like, when can I eat? Am I going to be okay? This loan didn't come through. My family, they're not working, or they lost their job or something happened. Like, who's taking care of my family? Like, those are real factors influencing college students, and you don't really see the impact until you get to college often, because you're there, right? I work with a lot of folks that are like, sometimes they were the breadwinners, or sometimes they were the babysitters. They were the third parent or the second parent, So leaving that anxiety is, in my face, my family okay? So there we go. Now I have to be perfect, or else I'm letting them down. Like, I know they got all these bills to pay. And then also just like anxiety, threats to safety. Like, when I say things happening, within the world, you don't get the chance to really process it or have words for it. And then, of course, relational stress. Conflict resolution. We think about steps, conflict resolution, but conflict is heightened, right? Like you mentioned, like with the person you were talking about, that's social anxiety. Like, oops, I said something wrong, because also these college students are in a very different social climate than when we went to college.
For sure.
So, a lot of people are worried about saying the wrong thing. Cancel culture, let's be real, is real. And when we have social media, I'm team social media, because I'll tell you where to find me. But at the same time, the threat of like, if you say the wrong thing or you do something and you're not in alignment with like the majority, we have things like Yik Yak. I don't know if they had that when you went to college, like the little
you had Yik Yak?
Yes, it's an anonymous app that it goes like within a certain radius. So you can set a 5-mile radius, and anyone within that can like post anonymously. So you get a certain college population, you can post. You can say something like, oh yeah, Kayla was out there looking a hot mess. Can you believe she said that stupid thing? And then people can comment saying, oh yeah, she's an awful person. And you're seeing it, but you don't know who's saying it. So again, that feeling of like, what do people think about me? So I think about tangible steps from a community and familial aspect, allowing them to find their worth outside of what they can provide to you for academics. Say things, and I tell parents this all the time, Drake, I'm like, can you just, before you ask them about their grades or how school's going, ask them, how are they feeling? Unrelated. Like, what has life been like? How have you been sleeping? How have you been eating? Right? Help them to see themselves as another person. And say, I care about you. It's okay if things aren't going well. That's all right. I still value you as a person. Because those messages aren't intentionally sent. Right? And so if they're not intentionally sent, but we send the other ones intentionally, they're going to develop a psyche about themselves. Like, this is where my worth is. I would say also teaching, which is what we're going to try to do in the fall, a lot of like teaching like ways to come back and repair from conflict. Like, if something happens with someone else, it does not fully define who you are, and it also doesn't fully define where that relationship goes, and that's okay. One big thing I see across the board struggling to like validate a lot of their experiences. They feel like they're dramatic or it doesn't make sense why they feel. Just being listening and validating, and then figuring out, okay, where do you want to go? Like, what does it look like without trying to do it for them, saying like, all right, what are your options? Let's figure out what's the best, and helping them to be okay with making mistakes. I do believe life is better when we make mistakes, because how else do we come back from
How do you learn?
Yeah, but sometimes supports are like, you just got to do this one thing. And I've been very transparent with some of my folks. I'm like, I don't really know. We're going to figure it out, and when you figure it out, then you figure out what's the next step. So something as simple as like, what are the pros and cons, right? Teaching those skills more directly, because I don't know what the school system, how they're teaching that nowadays, but helping them to like learn through life without us also inserting our personal stories. Yes. And like, how do you feel about that? What's going on? How do you want to move through it, and go from there?
Kayla, this has been fun. What I took from this conversation is it's really okay to ask for help. It's really okay to validate not only your children, but your peers too. Yes. And it's okay to take a step back for yourself and check in and see how you feeling, whether it's a racial trauma, whether it's anxiety trauma, whether it's any form of trauma, to take back and view it from your own lens, whether that's active, whether that's sitting still in meditation. This is what I'm taking from this conversation. I think we helped a lot of people. I appreciate you. And I say we because all I did was ask questions.
Well, you helped me. You had space.
But tell us where we can find you. We definitely would love to continue to follow you on your journey as you continue to change the world.
Thank you. Yes. So I'll start with my social media. I live on social media.
Her Facebook is cracking. And I don't say that about a lot of people Facebook.
Right. Yes. I love it. I do a lot of lives on TikTok as well. So it's Question Kayla. You can find me anywhere. Question Kayla. On Insta, it's just Question Kayla 28. I have a YouTube. I have TikTok. I have Instagram. I also have Question Kayla 28@gmail.com. Is how you can connect with me if you want speaking engagement. Yep. This is probably the most popular and requested is racial trauma. Also other pieces like mental health and like the workplace. I get those quite a bit. Like what do you do processing that? But I live for inner child work. Like, so those are like shame and self-esteem. Like that's where I love. But that's where you can find me, truthfully. And if you see me out, just wave, say hello if you heard it. Like, great. I love to know that these things are having an impact on people.
Yep. Dope. Well, Kayla, it's been fun. Thank you for coming back on the Minds Without King podcast. And you guys, that wraps up another episode of the Minds Without King podcast. If this episode was super, super impactful for you and you know somebody in college or you know somebody who's struggling with racial trauma, send it to them. Share this with a friend. It'll be really helpful. Yeah. Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Minds Without King podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Kayla. And if this episode was extremely helpful to you, please share this with a friend. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to at the moment. And also leave a comment on what your takeaway was from Kayla's conversation. This episode of the Minds Without King podcast was produced by Solomon Jones of Green Astro Media. Music by Headband. Questions by Kais Randall and Sammy Hakeem.